This is the launch of Apollo 11, July 16th, 1969. It's camera E8, which shows the base of the Saturn V vehicle. It's done on 16mm film at 500 frames per second. Now, this particular camera was started at 5 seconds prior to liftoff. Now, at this speed, what you're going to see in this full 8 minutes and 22 seconds is about 30 seconds worth of actual time. Here, ignition sequence start is already started, and the kerosene and liquid oxygen is mixing. The F1 engines were started by bursting a hypergolic cartridge, which spun up the turbines to start driving the propellants into the engine. Now you're seeing that liquid oxygen and kerosene mixing and billowing up in the initial stage of starting up those engines. Now, when it reached full thrust and started to get thrust from those 5 engines, 7.5 million pounds, you see how it sucks all the material back down underneath the vehicle. And that was because now all of that material is going at a tremendous speed and being pushed out into the flame trench, and it just sucks all of that material back down. On the right, you see 2 tail service masts. There's a third one on the other side of the vehicle, and around the vehicle you also see 4 hold-down arms. Now, the vehicle sat on those hold-down arms. There was a mechanism inside there that held it onto the launch pad until liftoff. At T-0, those would release after they got the proper signal from the engines that all 5 engines were running properly. It would release, and as soon as it released, those tail service arms would move, and all the mechanisms would go up into a hood underneath those hoods so that they would be protected from the exhaust of the engines. You see ice coming down now off the vehicle. You know that the space shuttle is real concerned about debris coming off the external tank, which is insulated. And the reason for that is the thermal protection system on the space shuttle, which sits on the side, is very delicate and can't be hit by that much. But the Saturn V had no such problem. So the Saturn V's liquid oxygen tank on the first stage wasn't insulated, so you get a lot of ice coming off of it when it hits the vibration. Now you see liftoff has happened. The tail service masts are pulling back up into the hoods. The F1 engines are coming up, and you see that dark band of gas that's coming out of those engines all around, and then you'll see it get to the really bright part. Now that cool gas, it's cooler gas is the reason it's dark. That's coming from the turbine exhaust. And the turbine exhaust is dumped into the engine around the inside of that nozzle, so it would be cooler and would act as something of an insulator on that nozzle extension so it wouldn't get too hot. That central gas is what's coming out of the engine injector, where the liquid oxygen and the kerosene's being mixed together, coming out of that injector. Now on the tail service masts and on the hold-down arms, in fact, even over here on the left-hand side in the corner of the tower, you see a whitish material that it's painted. That is actually a material that was designed to burn and char. In trying to protect this material so that the launch installation, so that it would get a minimum of damage from a Saturn V launch, they painted these particular tail service masts and hold-down arm covers and the corners of this tower with this ablative kind of paint. And this material was designed to burn and char so that it would burn and the underlying material would be insulated and stay safe. You'll see that happening in just a moment. Now you're seeing that the water deluge system has definitely been activated, and you're seeing a lot of that flash into steam and come up against the quartz mirror that the camera is housed in. Now, remember, I was talking about that white material. It's aflame now as it's getting hit by the engine exhaust, and it was designed to do that. You'll see it's already starting to char. You see the third tail service mast over on the other side. There were 3 total, and you see at least 3 of the 4 hold-down arms. You see the hoods now on the hold-down arms have closed over, so they're protecting that mechanism that held the vehicle down. And you see that all of that material that's in the exhaust is now afire on its own. Now look how instantaneously all of the water that's dumped into this area, and there was a lot of water dumped into this area, is instantly flashing to steam. It's very, very hot there right now. And as that tower over here on the left, you see it's starting to burn as well. So you're starting to get enormous heat coming off of it. In fact, there are some cameras where you'll get a view of these launches, and the grass around the pad, typically you would have a number of grass fires right around the pad because the heat would move all the way off of the pad to a high enough degree to light a good deal of the grass around the launch pad. There are usually several grass fires that you see after on some of these cameras. Now you see that white material really burning now, including over here on the tower. You see the water deluge system is full on. At this point, the vehicle would have cleared the tower, but the exhaust from those 5 F1 engines was long enough to still being impinging on the launch pad, even at this point. All of the white area you see, which is aflame, is that char material. There's an enormous amount of water being poured down into the flame trench and down through the hole, as well as you see some nozzles here on the base of the mobile launcher that are dumping water right onto the mobile launcher. And at this point, there's also water coming from above in order to shield that tower. So there's an awful lot of water coming down onto the pad now. Now you'll start to see a lot of this water and debris, as the vehicle has moved away, start to swirl around, some of it getting on the quartz window of the camera. You're seeing the burning of the insulation materials start to go away. And you're also seeing a good deal of the steam coming off that's not being blown away the way it was by the exhaust. And you're getting a better idea of just how much water is being dumped onto this. And still, it's so hot that it's flashing a good bit of it into steam. Now, pretty much all of the char is done. There's no longer impingement going on from the vehicle. The vehicle has moved up away from the tower and has started its trajectory out over the ocean. You still see a good bit of debris occurring. Now this launch happened at 9:32 in the morning, so it's really pretty bright here, but the camera exposure was set so as to be able to see as much detail as it could while the engines were being started and moving up. So it starts to get a little bit darker after the engines are out. And you're starting to see a lot more of the water coming down on top of the window in the housing. So this was the launch of Apollo 11, the first manned lunar landing from the corner of the tower on the mobile launch platform.
Next up will be Falcon Heavy in startup, and that will be at the T-minus 1 minute mark. That's where the internal flight computers take over the launch countdown.
Falcon Heavy is in startup.
And great news, Falcon Heavy now in startup. We're now just waiting for the final call from the launch director.
This is the mission director. Go for launch.
And excellent news, all systems are go for launch of Falcon Heavy with USSF 67.
T-minus 30 seconds. Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine full power. And liftoff of USSF 67. Go Falcon Heavy. Go Space Force. Booster chamber pressures are nominal.
There it comes.
T plus 40 seconds into flight under the power of 5 million pounds of thrust.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Falcon Heavy is headed to space. Now we did throttle down the engines around the T plus 40 second
Vehicle
mark
supersonic.
in preparation for max Q.
Max Q.
And great call out there that we have passed through max Q. That's the largest mechanical stress on the views there on your screen. Falcon Heavy in flight. Now next events coming up will be booster engine cutoff or BECO, followed by separation of the side boosters and followed by their side booster boost back burns. And then will be center core main engine cutoff, or what we call MECO. And those events coming up here just under a minute away. That will be BECO. That's where the side boosters engines will shut down. The center core will push those side boosters away from the vehicle. Then those two side boosters can begin to make their way back down to Earth with their boost back burns. And on your right-hand screen, you could see the views from each of those side boosters. Really incredible views here. Again, we will have BECO, side booster, boost back burn, followed by main engine cutoff of the center core here in just a few seconds.
Side booster separation. Side core booster startup.
Incredible views. We just had BECO and separation of the side boosters, and you can see on your left-hand screen that the side boosters have lit back up. They are now in their boost back burn, making their way back down to Earth. Those side boosters are returning to Florida under the power of 3 engines. That's 3 of the 9 M1D engines. So next up will be the conclusion. Next up will be the conclusion of those side booster boost back burns, followed by MECO on the center core, as well as stage separation of the center core and the second stage, and then SES-1 or second stage engine start 1. Now, as I mentioned previously, per the request of our customer, we won't be showing second stage views after SES-1. And additionally, our center core or stage 1 is expendable today, so we will not be attempting to recover that vehicle, but we should have some great views like we are seeing right
Side
now.
core, boost back, shut down.
We should have some great views of those side boosters touching down for landing.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
NVAC startup.
And excellent views. We had the
Stage 1 FTSSA has safed.
We did have the shutdown of the
Position
boost
signal.
back burn. We did have the shutdown of the boost back burns on the side boosters as well as MECO on that center core and stage separation. We are waiting for confirmation of a call out of the fairing separation.
All vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
So currently stage 2 is still making its way to its targeted drop-off orbit, while the side boosters are making their way back down to land. And these side boosters have another burn coming up. That will be the entry burn. That will be 3 of 9 M1D engines reigniting. That helps to slow the boosters down in preparation or as they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. We got some views here from those side boosters there on your screen. Now, at the time of separation, the side boosters were traveling slow enough to turn around and make their way back to land, to our side-by-side landing pads. If we have successful landings today, we'll mark the 163rd and 164th landing of an orbital class rocket. As I mentioned earlier, the center core will be expendable, and we are not attempting to recover it today.
Side core entry burn startup.
And there you can see on your screen, the entry burns for these side boosters have begun. They're just about 12 seconds long.
Side core entry burn
PY-FTS
shut down.
has saved, and NY-FTS has saved.
And the entry burns for both side boosters have now concluded. Now, next up will be the final burn for each of these side boosters. That is the landing burn. It is just a single engine burn, the center E9 engine. Each one of these M1D engines have about 190,000 pounds of thrust. So that is enough to slow the vehicle down just in time for landing. And you could see the coast of Florida in the background.
Side boosters are transonic.
Now that landing burn coming up here in just about 20 seconds or so. Landing burn will last about 20 seconds long. Again, we are scheduled to land on landing zone 1 and landing
Booster
zone 2.
landing burn.
And there are those landing burns have begun on the side boosters. So let's watch as they touch down.
Stage 2 is on terminal guidance. Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Booster landing leg deployed.
And what an incredible sight to see as we watch the side boosters touch down for landing. That confirms successful landing of both Falcon Heavy side boosters on landing zone 1 and landing zone 2. Now with these two side boosters, this marks the 163rd and 164th overall successful landing of an orbital class rocket. It's also the 25th landing on landing zone 1 and the 6th landing on landing zone 2. And with successful confirmation of our side boosters landing, that will bring today's webcast to
Nominal
a
orbit
close.
insertion.
Now, we'd like to thank the United States Space Force for entrusting us with today's mission. Thank you to the range and the Federal Aviation Administration for licensing today's launch. And we'd like to thank all of you, our viewers, for tuning in. Now, if you're interested,